On behalf of everyone at WNET, congratulations to Steve Adubato and the Caucus Educational Corporation on 25 great years of broadcasting.
Hi, I'm Dario Cortez. Berkeley College believes that all citizens need to be informed about the important issues that affect our daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and the partners in public television.
This special edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center. Funding has been provided by Barnabas Health, TD Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, making healthcare work, PSE&G, committed to improving New Jersey's economy and strengthening its communities, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and banking under the principle of stewardship. Roche, the law firm of Gibbons PC, and by the New Jersey Education Association, working for great public schools for every child. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger and NJ.com, Everything Jersey, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association and its monthly magazine, New Jersey Business.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. I want to introduce you to our very special guest, a very special show. He is Curtis Sherrod, Executive Director, Hip Hop Culture Center. Good to see you. How you doing?
Hey, I'm very good. Glad to be here.
And we were just talking before we started the show. Where'd you grow up?
I'm a Bronx boy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where you grew up has had something to do with how you see the world and how you do what you do.
Everything.
Describe the organization, by the way, Hip Hop Culture Center.
What we do, we use hip hop to bring young people in. And once we get them in, we tease them with the hip hop. You know, we teach them economic literacy, political awareness, diet and nutrition, or you can give us any subject matter and we will regurgitate that subject matter in a hip-hop-centric way to reinforce whatever's being taught in the classroom.
What do most of us who were not born into the hip-hop culture get wrong about it?
I think, well, we were speaking before the show, and you have an Italian background. I think it's similar to that. People confuse rap culture with hip-hop culture because of what mass media, television shows.
Is there a difference?
Oh.
Between rap and hip-hop culture?
Two different animals.
Describe.
Okay, hip-hop's a culture, okay? The first culture, or the first element of hip-hop is graffiti. The second element of hip-hop is DJing. The third element of hip-hop is breakdancing. The fourth element is MCing. We never called it rapping, we called it MCing, mic control, master of the ceremony. The fifth is knowledge of self. And when you combine all these elements, you have hip-hop as opposed to rap, which is a commercial way to exploit and make money from hip-hop.
The hip-hop culture started in the Bronx about 30 years ago?
Yeah, Kool Herc. Kool Herc, is him and his sister Cindy Campbell? Is
it acknowledged? Because when you talk about, listen, there's a lot of debates about different forms of music and who was the one, who was the king, who was the queen. You know, even though those of us who love Aretha Franklin will debate it with anyone. But that being said, is this an indisputable truth?
Put it like this, if I got to sign on the dotted line, I'm going with Kool Herc, okay? And I would like to see people and their data to say someone else. Of course, it's an extension of Afrocentricity.
Who is this that we're talking about?
As far as Kool Herc?
Yes.
Kool Herc was a gentleman who was really into hip hop. Well, actually, his background is he's from Jamaica.
Right.
He's Jamaican. And they have like this sound boy thing where they have great sound systems in Jamaica. And then when he came to New York, you know, I'm sure Herc could tell his story better than me, but when he came to New York, there's a culture of toasting here in New York City. And then you have what a griot is, whereas...
What?
Okay.
It's like you're talking a foreign language. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Now you understand why.
No, I don't understand.
Well, for clarity's sake.
Well, you come on our show at Lincoln Center to make me feel so out of it? Is that what it is? And your sigh makes me feel worse. And that is the point of your work.
Exactly. That's why we have the Hip Hop Culture Center. We travel to go to different individuals, different organizations, and particularly young people. You got young people who are from the Bronx, where hip hop was invented, and they don't know what hip hop is. You know, they think it's bling bling, you know, calling someone out their name, driving a fancy car, where no, the people who invented hip hop, we were broke. You see what I'm saying? They stopped giving us music classes in the Bronx at one time.
By the way, we're looking at your
Oh, that's
offices?
the venue, yeah.
In Harlem,
Yeah, that's the venue we actually had right inside on 125th Street,
right? Right by the Apollo?
across the street from the Apollo,
Got
second
it.
floor of the Magic Johnson Theater.
The anti-violence walk.
We had an anti-gun walk, which led us to really want to do a rap-a-thon, and I'll tell you what a rap-a-thon is very shortly.
Can we go to the footage and then Curtis can talk about it? Let's go to the clip.
Put the guns down, put the guns down, put the guns down, throw the peace sign up. Put the guns down, put the guns down, put the guns down, throw the peace sign up.
Talk to us.
Now, the anti-gun walk, we have some of the best MCs in the world, and they have the ability to take a social issue that impacts our community, and then through rap music, make it relevant by using it in the way it should be used.
You know, it's interesting. You have a strong desire, strong interest to educate.
Yeah.
To what end?
Education is the key. You know, the more you know, the more you can support yourself, your community, your family, your people in an intelligent way.
Where do the dollars come from for the center?
We struggle. We struggle, but we always find a way to make it happen.
But is it about donations from the community? Is it about corporate foundation grants?
A combination of all. A combination of all. And it's funny because you would think, oh, hip hop, you guys get a lot of support from like the major rappers and things
You would
like
think.
that. Negatory.
Because?
I don't think a lot of rappers who've made lots of money from hip hop know what hip hop is.
That doesn't make
I know,
sense.
I know, but it's true. It's true.
So those who are most recognized as hip hop artists, right? Name a few.
Let me see, the most recognizable to me?
Well, no, not to you. Let's say
okay.
mainstream.
Mainstream, a Lil Wayne, a Drake, Puffy, Jay-Z.
What responsibility do you believe? Now you talk about Jay-Z. Now, many people would say, look at what Jay-Z has done in Brooklyn. Look
Right.
at and that what has happened out in Brooklyn, the Renaissance out there, and the Barclays Center is just a piece of it. But that many would say that some of the success out there is a product of Jay-Z and his interest in that community. What do you think the responsibility is of those who have been most successful, and some say fortunate in that process, to the movement? And is it a movement?
Well, it's a lifestyle, it's a culture, and it's almost like, take basketball, all right? In basketball, a lot of people play ball, right?
Right.
If you go to any borough in New York City, you could probably find 100 people who could have been in the NBA.
Well, you look at the Harlem Rucker tournament, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
well, you know what
so
I'm talking about, right?
You take someone like Jay-Z, he's an example. Yeah,
Right.
out of 1,000 rappers who are as good as Jay-Z or more talented,
Right.
he's one of the ones that made it.
Do they owe?
Do they owe? Well, I think that I don't know him personally, and I think every man has to do what's right for him, you know, so that he can sleep at night. So I can't say you owe. It will be nice to say yes, because as a people, we got here standing on the shoulders of others that came before us. I was just doing some research from Frederick Douglass the other day, and I was like, what an amazing cat to have done all the things that he's done. I can go on forever and ever with people who sacrificed, didn't get monetary gain for us as a people today to be where we're at. And so it's really a personal decision. What do I think?
I hear you. And finally, for adults, be they black, white, Hispanic, or others, who want to connect with their kids who are connected to in some way to hip-hop culture, advice to us is?
Well, I would say check out the Rap-a-thon. And the Rap-a-thon is where we get 100 rappers to rap for 100 hours straight. No cursing, no N-word, no B-word, and it's always for something positive.
It's good stuff. By the way, how can people, we have the website up, guys? Have we been doing that? Terrific. Curtis Sherrod, Executive Director, Hip Hop Culture Center. I want to thank you for joining us.
Hey, it was my pleasure.
Studio, for sharing and making me feel incredibly out of it. That was your intent? Nice. Good job.
Well, it's not,
you seem
Steve.
to enjoy it.
But you know what? We could do fellowship later, and I'll hook you up.
Thank you very much. Stay tuned. We'll be right back right after this.
Good show.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, Email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
There he is. Brad Parks is the author of The Good Cop. How you doing?
Darn good.
And by the way, Lisa Gardner says of your book right on the cover, a knockout thriller as smart and stylish as its charming protagonist, Carne Ross. And by the way, Carne Ross, who is the protagonist, it's a mystery, as I know.
Right.
Does this bear any resemblance to you and your career as a journalist, practicing journalist for many years?
Well, let's see here. Carne Ross is an investigative reporter for a Newark-based newspaper. I was an investigative reporter for a Newark-based newspaper.
Do you admit that?
I do.
Yes.
I do, and I will say that on the record.
Did you cover crime?
Under oath. I did, in fact. Well, this may surprise you, but there is some crime to be covered in Newark.
Really?
I know, stop.
Not in the neighborhood I grew up
This
in.
is the first you've heard of it. I know. They don't allow crime in the North Ward. Different
I'm sorry,
rules
let's
up
just
there.
not go there.
So yes, and he's about 6'1", about 185 pounds, brown hair, blue eyes.
That's the guy.
A totally fictional.
Totally different guy.
Yeah, I have no idea where I came up with
That's
him.
how interesting. You did spend those years at the Star-Ledger. And,
Right.
by the way, the newspaper here is called the Newark Eagle Examiner.
Yes.
Not to be confused with that other paper. How much different is it writing on deadline every day
Right.
for a real newspaper about real crime and the writing that you do with these books?
Oh, everything's different. The immediacy of it is very different. I mean, when you're writing about a crime, it's because it's something everyone's talking about, and you're getting that constant feedback of, wow, this is the thing, and this is the moment. And isn't that what we love about being journalists? We feel like we're writing about everything, what people are talking about. Whereas this, I'll write this, and the book doesn't come out for a year or two. So it's I really have to kind of retreat more into my own world and this universe that I'm creating. And there has to be more internal feedback there.
Who's the good cop? What's the story about?
So the good cop is a cop who has a Newark police officer who has died, and Carne Ross, the protagonist, goes out, writes his story or gets his story, and then learns that actually it's been ruled a suicide. But he already knows that this cop does not seem like the kind of guy who would off himself. And sure enough, soon the family says, no, this was absolutely not a suicide, but the cover-up is on by that point.
The cover-up is on.
There's a cover-up. A cover-up in Newark. Again,
There is a reason to
suspend
believe
your disbelief.
And without giving up too much here, would this have anything to do with potential corruption?
No, never.
Within
Newark?
the law enforcement community?
Come now. Could never
You are a
happen.
very cynical young man.
Well, it does happen in the journalism world.
Okay, but there is some corruption.
Yes, there is. And it ultimately, we learn about a gun smuggling syndicate.
Gun smuggling?
Gun smuggling.
That's a theme. You're interested in this
Which
issue, are
also
you not?
happens. Well, you can't be in Newark for 10 years and not get interested in guns, because how many of those crimes you end up covering, is there a gun involved?
So let's talk about the gun issue.
Sure.
Did you have a Virginia experience at some point in your life that caused you to see that each state has its own gun laws and therefore its own, let's say, gun culture?
Gun culture, yes. So I live in Virginia now. So when I moved from New Jersey to Virginia, I'm kind of learning my new state, and I go to this outdoor store. It was a Bass Pro Shops. Big case of handguns. It's like, what?
It's a Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah.
Listen, I didn't grow up fishing, but I think you're talking about fish.
Yeah, but huge case of guns. And so I know what the gun laws in New Jersey are. And of course, they're very onerous, 30-day waiting period, full background check, everything. And I go up to the counter and I say to the guy, so, what are the gun laws here? And he's like, boy, you in Virginia now. Forget 30-day waiting period. They don't even have a 15-minute waiting period. As long as you're not a felon and are tall enough to get the money up on the counter, you're out with a gun. Furthermore, if you have a concealed carry permit, which is very easy to get down in Virginia, you can buy as many guns as you like, no questions asked, and be out the door about 20 minutes later.
Well, then let's talk about the connection between how easy
Right.
and accessible guns are in a situation like that and gun smuggling into another state.
Well, and that's what really struck me as I was standing in this outdoor store, how easy it would be to file off the serial numbers on the gun, throw them in my trunk, and I'm in Camden, I'm in Newark, I'm in Patterson 5 hours later, selling these. This is why law enforcement calls Route 95 the iron pipeline, because it is a conduit from states with very lax gun control laws to states with very tight gun control laws. And this is what is happening in New Jersey cities all the time.
It's interesting. You write about mysteries, if you will. You write these novels, but social public policy, if you
Right.
will. Issues matter to you a great deal, do they not?
I actually start with the issue. When I think about a book, I say, what issue do I want to tackle? So that, the first
Issue
book,
first?
Yeah, issue first. So the first book was a book about drugs to me. The second book was a book about subprime mortgage and all the real estate craziness. The third book gets into organized labor, things like that. And yes, this is a book about gun smuggling. The fifth one is actually, which is written and ready to go, it's about toxic waste in the mob. Again.
Well, hold on, wait a minute. Now you're really starting to irritate me.
Now I'm really stretching
what are you, just
right.
watching too many episodes of The Sopranos? Toxic waste in the mob?
I know, go figure.
And you've been finally able to make this connection.
10 years in New Jersey and I finally figured it out, yeah.
Oh boy. Now,
trouble.
Carter, this character.
Yeah.
When you're writing, Carter's been in all sorts of situations.
Right.
Do you find when you're writing about Carter that you feel a need to bring in your past experiences, or does Carter wind up in situations you've never been in as a journalist and you say, you know what, I would have liked to? I know it's a complicated question.
Yeah, no, it is, but I follow you because it's been an evolution actually, where the first books were very strictly based on things that I had seen, things that I had done. I give it a little fictional twist in the way it goes. And now, really, Carter is, as his own character, discovering things on his own, and it really is becoming more fictional. But to answer the second part about what I think your question was, yeah, there's some aspirational stuff in there. I mean, I'm not a newspaper reporter anymore, and I loved being a newspaper reporter. And so I think Carter Ross gets to write the stories that maybe I wish I were still writing.
Okay, but you don't live in New Jersey anymore.
Correct.
And for those of us who were born and raised and continue to live in New Jersey, we still want to believe, and you may have heard, we have a governor that...
I've heard a little bit about him, just a smidge. Yeah.
He's sooner or later, he's going to come out of his shell.
Right.
Really say
yeah,
what he really thinks.
It really is. It's a shame how just shy he is.
But he's going to break through.
Reminds me of Corzine in that way, yeah.
He's very much like Corzine. But that being said, the reason I bring it up is I wonder, because you don't live in the state, do you worry that you're not going to have feel that Jersey connection and you're going to run out of stuff?
Not really. I mean, 1 year in the newsroom at the Star-Ledger gives you enough material for like 20 novels at least. And I get back up here quite a bit on book tour, to see friends. Sometimes I'll just go into Newark just to walk around the streets.
Do we feel different to you? Do we feel any different? Do we look the same? I mean, what is it? We just get older every year?
There's an energy to New Jersey, though.
Describe it. For those who... we're on the west side of Manhattan. We're in Lincoln Center, as you know, the Tisch WNET studio. For those, even New Yorkers who may not have actually been to New Jersey and just seen us on television. Right. Go ahead.
So there's a vibrancy, there's an energy, there's a character. Every town in New Jersey has its own feel to it, or every section of Newark has its own feel to it. And I really came to appreciate that. And also, I mean, New Jersey has unique things about it. We are either 1 or 2 in per capita income in the country, and yet have 2 of the poorest cities in Newark and Camden.
Camden and Newark.
And yet we have every different ethnicity, we have every different religion, we have every different ethnic mob, which is good for a crime fiction writer. And yet, because we're the densest state in the Union, all of those people can't help but mashing into each other all the time.
And of course, we have the highest property taxes in the nation.
Right.
But you don't write about property
taxes. Which I
taxes.
don't miss,
no.
I will say.
Brad Parks is the author of The Good Cop. Go out there and get it. Good stuff. You never lose your Jersey roots.
Not at all.
Appreciate it, Brad.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Adubato. We're at the Tisch WNET studio. We'll be back right after this. Thank you very much.
If you would like more information on this program, or if you'd like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Visit us online at oneonone.org, or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD.
There he is, Carne Ross, the author of The Leaderless Revolution. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Is it not a fact that you are a former British diplomat?
It is a fact that I'm a former British diplomat. I resigned over the Iraq War.
2003?
I did, yeah, 10 years ago.
And the reasons that you resigned as a diplomat have a lot to do with this book and your views on the lack of leadership.
Well, it's more that I became very disillusioned with government because of my experience. I worked on Iraq, WMD, and all of that.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Weapons of mass destruction.
Where were they?
Well, there were none. We thought there were some, but not enough to constitute a threat, and our governments pretended they were a threat, which they weren't. And I worked on that in great detail, so I knew that my government was lying about it, which was a profoundly disillusioning experience for me, but also was the trigger for this journey that's recounted in the book about what would work as a method of running the world, what would work as a method of arbitrating our affairs together, because even representative government, as currently constituted, was failing in many different respects. So the book is that exploration to a different kind of politics.
What would that look like?
Well, it's very people-centered. It's about people taking action themselves, negotiating with each other peacefully, inclusively, to actually do things, to affect the things that they care about most, rather than asking other people or asking governments to do it for them.
Okay, devil's advocate. Someone would say, okay, well, we've had some of that here in the United States. Let's take a look at a couple of movements that are people-based. Movements like the Tea Party, movements like the Occupy movement, right? Hey, is that what Carne's talking about?
Not really, though I'm sympathetic to Occupy and am part of an Occupy effort to build a new bank, which is actually more of what I'm talking about, which is practical action to build new things rather than trying to campaign for government to do different things. And I think the weakness of both the Tea Party and indeed Occupy is that they're essentially protest movements. They are protesting the state of things now, and they're saying we need to capture Washington or get politicians to do things better, which I don't actually believe in. I think that conventional political institutions are fundamentally broken and corrupted, and that therefore we have to do things ourselves. We have to start from the bottom, building up new structures that are better.
And you've talked about very specific principles, and I believe you talk about 9 in the book. The most important principle that you talk about, you said, who's got the money, who's got the gun?
Yeah, well, that's a great little sort of phrase about analysing where power is, because I believe in a power analysis of politics. You know, who is making the decisions? Why are things like they are? One has to understand that before designing your own action to affect that thing. But that's really the analysis that, you know, starts the action. The action is much more important than the analysis. It's really a precursor to action. Who's got the money? Who's got the gun?
A couple of the other ones that really got my attention. There's so many here, but you have big picture, small deeds.
Yeah. Well, that's a sort of Gandhian idea, to put it slightly pretentiously, but change is overwhelming. How do you stop climate change? How do you improve health for people in Africa? How do you change politics in our country? What can little you possibly do? But the idea there is you need an epic goal to inspire you, something really great, something fantastic, but you need to do something every single day that is practical to get to that goal. Big picture, small steps. Change actually doesn't happen on an epic level. Nobody can change things in that way, but collectively we can change things through these small steps.
So it's interesting, if I were to try to offer an analogy, someone says, wow, I know this sounds incredibly simplistic after you just talked about that. Someone says, I want to run the marathon.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big deal if you've never run before. But every day,
yeah. Well,
you can do something smaller.
The slight analogy, the difference in that analogy is that that's small steps to build up to a big one, having the marathon.
Is this different? You're talking about something different?
I am talking about something different in the sense that, the small steps constitute the change themselves. If you act yourselves to look after, say, the vulnerable in our society, the elderly, if you go and visit an old person in an old people's home, that itself constitutes change. You're not going to globally change that problem, but you are going to change it locally and for yourself.
It's a great point. It's not simply a means to an end. It's an end in and of itself, because you're actually helping that person that day.
Yeah, and you have beautifully articulated one of the other principles, which is the means are the ends.
The means are the ends.
Yeah, I think we've become very used to a model of politics where we're told that change produces a certain outcome. Well, the book is saying you are the outcome, that actually what you need to do needs to be the outcome, the end that you seek. Gandhi believed this, to show your political disaffection with the problem, you actually have to solve that problem rather than seeking to solve it. It's in a way a much more satisfying form of action. It's about real change right now in your hands.
By the way, some of the others, kill the king.
Yes, provocatively put, deliberately. But in chess, there is only one objective, which is to kill the other person's king.
But in this country, we don't have a king.
You don't.
So
that is entirely true.
What are you talking about?
We don't have one in Britain either. We
I know.
have a very nice queen. What I'm talking about is keep your eye on the objective all the time. Do not be satisfied with playing around with your pawns or your bishops. The only point is the outcome. Measure your actions by the outcome. If you're working to end genocide, if you haven't actually saved one person from genocide, your action, your Twitter petition or whatever has not worked. It's really a building from a critique of the rather empty kind of campaigning often we see on the internet, celebrities, that it is action, not words, that matters.
By the way, there's so many more. I'll go through these quickly. How about refer to the cosmopolitan criteria? I'll do that real quick, and then I'm going to ask you a final question.
A very pretentious way of saying ask other people what they want rather than assuming that you know what they want. The golden rule, as it's called, which is act for others as you would be acted to yourself, is inadequate. We can actually now ask people. They are the best judges of their own circumstance.
You've been out there, obviously, communicating the themes of this book. You were on Stephen Colbert, which is how we heard about you, and we're thrilled that you came into our public television studio to do this. The reaction that you've gotten to the themes, the messages in this book have been what?
Very personal, weirdly. Extraordinary letters, which are very gratifying for any author, from people who said the book has changed their lives. Because they've seen in it a path to ventilate the frustration that they feel about politics and the state of affairs today. But it's also a very practical, doable thing. It's not kind of grand theory. And that has been very moving for me as an author. And it also, tells me that change is not about, grand, epic revolution. It's actually about each of us changing the own story of our lives.
You have no regrets about leaving the diplomatic corps, do you?
I am today a free man. I have no regrets.
It's good stuff. The Leaderless Revolution, how ordinary people will take power and change politics in the 21st century. Carne Ross, I want to thank you for joining us and giving us hope and giving us something that we need to focus on anywhere, not just in this country, but every country that needs to change, and that's all of us. Thank you, Carne.
I really appreciate it.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System. Funding has been provided by Barnabas Health, TD Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, PSE&G, New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group, Roche, the law firm of Gibbons PC, and by the New Jersey Education Association. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been made possible in part by New Jersey State Nurses Association.
New Jersey nurses play a key role in the lives of everyone, from a school nurse teaching a diabetic child about injections, to a visiting nurse helping an elderly mother die at home, or someone like me, a nursing administrator for a healthcare organization. Whatever the role, nurses are there for you, and the New Jersey State Nurses Association has been protecting the practice of nursing and quality patient care since 1902, because caring for you and your families is what is most important to us.